table with your customs, right? So thank you guys. We got some Chronicle. Let's do this in big hands. And we'll leave it with you guys to take it away.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here tonight. I know it's kind of late. You guys have studio, you have class, you have projects, so we appreciate your time and your interest in Chronicle books. I'm Victoria Chow. I'm the studio manager for the design department. And I do a bunch of stuff for us, but one of the things that I do is I manage the fellowship program and our recruitment cycle. So if you're interested in our program, which we'll go over at the end, come talk to me, come email me. We have some postcards somewhere, and you've seen our posters around, so my email's on there, and I'll answer your questions. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Should we just introduce ourselves briefly?
Okay. My name's Kayla. I'm in the art group at Chronicle. I used to be a student here at the Academy. Right after I graduated, I went to the fellowship program, which Victoria was talking about. And after the fellowship program, I was hired at Chronicle Books full-time.
I'm Alison Weiner. I'm a designer in the art group as well. We're each put in different publishing groups, children's art, entertainment, and food and lifestyle. So we use that term, publishing group, pub group, that's what it means. I was also a fellow. I went to CCA. I don't know how you guys feel about that. But then I ended up freelancing for about a year, and then there was a position that opened up at Chronicle, and I was hired. And that was about 7 years ago. And now I'm one of the fellow managers, so I work closely with all the fellows.
And you are very soft-spoken. I'm going to interrupt for one moment. I thought the microphones were for the PA. They're to capture the
so we should speak up.
Teacher voice for you guys too.
Got it.
Great. So you guys do your part to belt it out. That'd be great.
Sure thing.
Okay.
It's okay. I'm Alice. I am a children's designer at Chronicle. So I work on books for kids from 0 to 15. And I've been with Chronicle for about 2 years. I've worked in a few other design jobs before that. And I went to liberal arts school, so there's that. But it's really nice to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you all about Chronicle books. And we have a whole presentation, but feel free to jump in with questions at any point, and then if there's time, we can do questions at the end, too.
So just so you know the lay of the next hour, we're going to go over what Chronicle is, kind of how it works as a company a little bit, and then we'll go over what it's like to be a designer and have some advice for you guys about life after school. Is it harder? Is it easier? Is it more fun? Less fun? Will you sleep less? I don't know. And then go into the fellowship program, of course, and opportunities to work with us. So I guess to get started, here's our visual overview. Actually, I have a question. So how many of you guys, Phil, you should close your eyes. How many of you guys have heard of Chronicle books before this presentation? Okay, that's good. How many of you have graduated? Seniors? Juniors? Okay. Who's graphic design? Industrial design?
Nice.
Illustration? Okay. Nice. Great. I was just curious, trying to get a layout of the land, and when we get to the fellowship part, and opportunities, we'll talk about how maybe you guys might have opportunities to work with us. All of those disciplines are applicable to what we do, so that's exciting to see you all here. Okay, so what is Chronicle Books, and what do we care about? What's our mission? So we are inspired by the enduring magic and importance of books, and we create publishing that's instantly recognizable for its spirit, creativity, and value. Sometimes we get questions from students that are like, what makes a Chronicle book? And we always give the really unsatisfying answer. You'll know it when you see it. And I think these guys can talk more about it as they go through projects and stories from their time there. But we really try to come up with stuff that's like interesting and new and fresh, and that can take a lot of different forms. And so as we go through, you'll see more of it. As a company, our core values are EPIC with a C squared, so that means that we value exploration, passion, integrity, collaboration, and creativity. Those are things, I know a lot of you guys are still in school, but actually, as you start, general professional advice, as you start looking for jobs, it is really great to find a place where the culture matches what your values are. And I'm sure your professors have already impressed this on you, but there's a really wide range of what companies out there are like, and some things work for some people, some things don't, and it's always good to sort of try to navigate that, especially early in your career. Okay, so how long have we been around? Our history is we were founded about 50 years ago. We're almost hitting 51 years. We're still riding this 50th anniversary wave. So 1967 was our founding year. We were founded in the summer of love. And since over the past 50 years, we went from 1 employee to about 203. We publish a lot of different kinds of things. And we used to be, when we started, we were part of this SF Chronicle, the newspaper, but we have since gone independent. So even though the founding family still has hands in both the newspaper and the publishing company, we're totally separate from them. So that's a common question. So, there we go. Oh no, too far. Okay, what we publish. So Allison alluded to this earlier. We think about our publishing in sort of 4 different content areas. One of them is food and lifestyle. So that's, food is obviously food books. We published the Tartine book. We did Jelena. We've done a bunch of other stuff, cakes, cookies, you name it, we've done it. And also drinking books, which sounds really fun. Books on bar carts, cocktails, wine, beer. We've done a lot of that. Lifestyle is more stuff like home decor, like wedding planning, different stage of life kind of books, like if, pregnancy or like graduating from college, starting college, that kind of stuff. Art is sort of a big group. Allison can probably talk about this in greater detail than I can, but that is both like traditional art publishing, like a book on Rothko, but also sort of like fun stuff like stationery, marker lines, like things about being more creative in your day-to-day life. We also consider that art publishing. Children's, I hope you guys know what a kid's book is, and at this point you all look at least 18 or close to it. And then entertainment is basically our pop culture books. So it can be stuff like, we do a lot of publishing for like Game of Thrones and Star Wars and Pixar, and then also just sort of like weird, funny books about, like, we have a series called about what's your poo telling you. It's about poop, and also like the Grumpy Cat books, and so there's a wide variety of things that go under entertainment. Words people use to describe our books: playful, distinctive and inspiring, clever, creative, colorful, delightful and imaginative, witty, beautiful and eye-catching, among other things. These are things that I guess I didn't have to read off to you, because you could go to your local Chronicle bookstore and see for yourself how you feel about our books. But I think one thing that all of those adjectives really points to is the fact that we really value the look and feel of our book. We talk about sort of like having a gift quality to it and an object quality to everything we publish, and we really value design. Since hopefully some of you are interested in potentially working with us, this is some photos of our San Francisco store. So our main office is in San Francisco. We also have a small outpost in New York, and we have some store locations internationally. I know we have a bunch in Japan, for example, but so as Phil mentioned, we have a retail space as our lobby, and so it's really important for people to see that we really are a publishing company and this is what we make. Our office is really nice, and we have this new addition to the Chronicle family is Specs the Book Bike, which you might see around. It's like a mobile little bookstore that they ride around. It has an electric assist, and it's just really fun. So this next slide, I'm not going to read it off. Basically, we publish a lot of stuff. We've been publishing for a long time. We've published a lot of New York Times bestsellers. We publish stuff that gets translated around the world. We work with a lot of different authors, artists, illustrators, so it's a fun place to work. The quality is something that we really care about, and also, there's a lot of variety to what we make. And going on that variety, we don't just publish books. We also do, stationery, journals. We also do a bunch of like other kind of stuff that's related to our books. So it's like games, button factories, finger puppets, temporary tattoos. They're all sort of like related to our publishing in some way or about books. So it's, they're not, especially not Kayla, like people are really like working on a lot of different kinds of projects, not just books, even though that's our bread and butter. Couple of other things about Chronicle as a culture. Where's the computer? What am I pointing at?
It's back there.
Okay. I'll just tell you. So things that we care about. In addition to working hard, playing hard, we also. Yeah. I'm gonna just. Cool. There we go. So our culture. So this is about. We do a lot of. As a company, we also really care about our community and like, I think being involved. And I think that's like not a thing that I would have thought about when I was applying for jobs straight out of school, but it is nice to be part of a culture that really cares. So, unfortunately, we've had a lot of natural disasters this year, and so we band together to raise money for those. We take donations and did a big coat drive for St. Anthony's, which is a nonprofit here. We donate books, obviously, to an organization called First Book. So I think that there is really a culture of like getting involved and really caring about like your community, your world, essentially, and that's a thing that is encouraged there. Next slide. We also play hard. We don't, we work hard, we play hard, and we throw a big Halloween party at Chronicle this year. The design team was robbed of having the best Halloween party of all the departments. We made a haunted color factory. We won second place. I'm not bitter about it at all. We have weird holidays like Frankfurter Day. So every year there's a big book fair called the Frankfurt Book Festival. If you're into books, you should totally keep an eye on that festival. It's a huge, like, all of the publishers around the world come and they like will like be like, oh, this Japanese publisher is publishing this really cool thing, let's do an English version and buy the rights, and they'll buy the rights to ours. So not everybody gets to go, so every year during the festival they bring in free hot dogs for us to eat, and that's like a big deal, and it's really fun. And so it's a great place to work, great company, and I will let the designers take it away with what exactly it is like to work in design there.
Yeah, so we came up with Kayla's brilliant idea. We came up with 9, life lessons that we have illustrated with examples from our work, things we either wish we knew when we were coming out of school or have learned as we've been on the job, but things we thought would be sort of valuable nuggets of wisdom, illustrated by funny things we've worked on. So mine, the sponge. Kayla also did a lot of the illustrations, and I think this is the most gorgeous sponge I've ever seen. So mine is, the first one is, I don't need to say much about, but just be a sponge. Take every opportunity you can to learn new things, to learn from new people. This has been invaluable to me as I've grown in my career. And so some of the ways that Chronicle enables us to do that are by participating in things in our community. So Creative Mornings is the one on the top left. What is Christina's title? Publishing director for our art group recently led a Creative Mornings talk on curiosity at SF MoMA, and a huge number of people from Chronicle went. But those are the types of things that are happening out in the world that can help, stir up an idea. In 2016, Chronicle gave its employees money to celebrate their passions, whether that was flower arranging or cocktail making, whatever it might be. And then the photo on the right is I went to the color factory, which maybe inspired our Halloween, with a bunch of coworkers. So not much more to say here, but be a sponge.
Your work will never be perfect. Like, throw that perfectionism kind of away, because you're always going to be growing and your work is always going to be improving. So when I came out of the academy, I went to Chronicle Books and I started in the fellowship, and I was so happy to be paired with my manager, who acted also as a mentor towards me. She taught me a lot about book design, and and it's helped me a lot throughout my career. So we also have this great thing that we do called show and tell, and all the designers will get together, and if we need feedback on a project, we can bring our work and we'll get feedback from our coworkers. So for this example, I needed to come up with a cover for a journal, and I was on a very strict deadline. So I put together these quick concepts, and these are super work in progress. Like, I usually hate showing my work if it's not done. But for this one, I was on such a time crunch that I needed to bring something and get feedback. So I put together quick prompts, brought them to our show and tell, and then I got the designers' feedback. And it was great to hear what was really resonating with them, what they had interest in, what they thought I could push further, and what they were like, nah, just throw that one away. That one's no good. And from that, I was able to pull together some really nice cover options that I could bring to show for our review. And out of all of these options, this one was chosen as our cover. So it was great. Like, I had never worked with quite this much color together on one cover. Okay. And we were really happy with our final cover. However, it was not our final cover. So we wanted to push it even further. We thought the concept of writing in color could come through some more. So we worked on some new type and added even more color, and we came to this very vibrant cover.
Do it. Okay. Sorry, it is sort of awkward.
Don't
Yeah.
hit the stop button.
Okay, so.
Just go press hard.
Yeah, okay. Okay, number 3, don't get too attached to your work. Be willing to change, redo, or throw it away to make your work better. Kayla talked a little bit about that in the last point, but I have a more painful project to share with you guys. Basically, let me give you a little snapshot about how the cover approval process works at Chronicle. Basically, first you work up some different sketches of different directions. You bring them to show and tell, maybe share them with the other designers. You share them with the editor, and the first major step is when the editor passes them along to the author. This can go one of two ways. The author might be thrilled, think you perfectly captured their vision. I'm always surprised when that happens. More likely, you go back to the drawing board, and you just start doing more rounds and more rounds until you come to a place where everybody's happy. But you're not done then. After that, you bring it to your publishing group. You get it approved by the publishing group. And the final step is bringing it to cover review, where the publisher's CEO and other key people sign off on it. So this can be a very, very lengthy process. And I have one example where it definitely was. This is a book I designed called Dollars and Sex. It's basically a study of dating, sex, and marriage seen through an economic lens. So there were a lot of different subjects that I could work with for the cover. I'm going to show you what I started with. I started just with simple vector illustrations playing with humor. The last one was my all-time favorite for the entire project, but most people didn't agree. So went back to the drawing board. Second round, I just did a quick pro pig. Did vintage stock photography, just experimenting with that. And I went back to illustration, and these were all sketches. So I felt at this point, if an idea was liked, I could pursue that further. But at this point, I'm just throwing out as many ideas as I can to see what resonates. What happened after that? I went to infographics, bar graphs, At this point, I just tried a cover with no title, kind of an act of desperation. And finally, something that got a good response. A line graph that also kind of looks like two people lying together. At this point, I felt secure that the direction was going to work, so I hired an illustrator, Arthur Mount, and he gave me some much-needed fresh perspective on this. So these were his 4 sketches of different possible couplings. I did color variations, type variations, and finally landed on an approved cover. So basically, this whole painful process taught me the value of quickly working through multiple ideas, and that even when I think I'm done and I cannot do another cover, there's always a way to reframe the problem to get unstuck. Oops.
And then we have the caveat that if you believe in something, back it up with design reasoning and prove your point. So I got to work on this really fun book by actually a ceramicist in Copenhagen. It's a find and seek book, you know, like Where's Waldo? And he had this vision of this as his final package. This is what he wanted all along. And you'll note that it is a book without a title on the cover, which is, like, you know, very important to our sales team that it does have a title on the cover. But we saw his vision. We understood the importance of the object quality of the book, of the play value of the book, and really thought that it was important that we did not include the title. But as described, this book went through many rounds of approvals, and of course, someone on our sales and marketing team was like, no, it needs the title on the cover. And so I was like, okay, you know, he had some really wonderful hand lettering, so we tried that in different variations. We thought maybe we could do the title in spot gloss, maybe we could blind emboss it. How could we basically make it as minimal as possible, as unobtrusive as possible? And we did a case study. We pulled some other books on the market. These are not Chronicle books that don't have titles. The far left is Penguin Problems. Top is The Lion and the Mouse. Bottom is Triangle. There are examples of books that have such a compelling cover and cover the way that the cover interacts with the content that they don't have the title. So we said we made our case, and ultimately we got to keep our titleless book. I will say that some of the foreign editions use the examples that we proposed. So like the French, for example, has the French title in spot glass.
Okay, next up, number 5. Be willing to experiment and learn something new. Okay, so working in the art group, we do a lot of journals, and sometimes we're asked to mock up things, concepts, before we even have any materials printed. So, you know, that's pretty easy. You can take a photograph of a journal and put your design on it. Great, done. However, over the past year, I've been asked to make more mock-ups of things that are non-book. So these are games, could be like postcards, or not postcards, sorry, list ledgers, things that are objects that we don't have readily available. And I need to come up with some kind of visual that we can show to our pub group, to authors, to different partners that we have, so we can show them that we have this idea and we want to move forward with it. So I took on this challenge to learn a little bit of 3D modeling. I didn't know anything about it before. My fiance actually works in 3D modeling, so I've seen some of his work, and I thought this could work for what I needed for mock-ups for visuals. So I went to Blender because it's free and I didn't have a budget for what I was working on. And I looked up videos on Lynda, Blender Guru, and YouTube and taught myself just enough so I could get started in the program. So I started customizing my models, making them how I wanted. You know, my pencil here. Felt all cool.
Kayla's very cool, by the way. Thanks. Does a lot of new things.
Learned about UVs, so I could put my own textures and my designs on each object and give everything materials. Learned how to light it, so I could come up with these nice shots. And these can be used in our catalog. If we don't actually have the product yet, we can at least show potential buyers what it will look like. And it's a pretty realistic rendering of it. So this was my first models. This was for Pendleton, and we wanted to do a series of classic games with them. And so with these models, I was able to show how we could incorporate some of their patterns. And I've used it. These I brought to our cover review to show what potential designs could look like on these. This is a Jacob's ladder, so they're little wooden blocks. And most recently, I've used the Blender program to show models that have a pitch for Pantone. So all of this really helps to show people a visual of what you want to make. And I never thought that I would be making these models, but keeping yourself open to new experiences and learning new things will really propel you forward.
Okay. Number 6, pay attention to materials. Tiny details can make all the difference. As book designers, we obsess over all the components of a book. See if I can do this again. Yes. From the end sheath to the case wrap to the spine to the head and tail bands to the book block. And we find that by paying close attention to all of these materials, you can create a book that is as interesting to look at as it is to read. And these are just a few examples of projects. This book is the card catalog. It's a book about the history of libraries with photography from the Library of Congress. Brooke, who was the designer, built a special feature into the end sheets, a pocket with a real library card. Bright ideas. I actually didn't even plan this, but I have another version of this right here. It's a journal with 10 different colored paper bound in signatures inside. And Brooke was also the designer on this. She chose an exposed binding so that the paper color could be seen from all sides. And finally, Huckleberry is a cookbook about Huckleberry Cafe in Santa Monica. Alice was the designer. Alice Chow, not Alice Seiler. She took a polka dot motif that was just a little element on the restaurant's menu and screen printed it on the 3 edges of the book block, kind of transforming the book into a beautiful object.
This is, I think, the one piece of advice that I actually got that I think about all the time, which is you'll bring each other up. Your peers are some of your greatest assets. I think, as you're starting to think about getting a job or what comes next, there's this sort of almost competitive thing that happens where you're like, what are you doing and how am I not measuring up? And someone at some point told me that this was just great advice about how to, instead of feeling competitive, how to just realize that your peers are your greatest asset. And I've seen so many examples of this at Chronicle. So this is an illustration of the way that the design team works together at Chronicle. We had a pitch from a woman who had made these posters, these after the election, these sort of inspirational and uplifting posters, and she had done them the design was really clean, and we thought that in order to make it a more compelling package, each one of the posters should feel like a poster, should have a design specific to the theme. But that meant maybe hiring a ton of different illustrators to have a lot of different styles and interests, and then we realized that we should just do it ourselves. So it was a design sprint, and these are some of the outcomes of it. And there are some really wonderful ones. There are 50, so certainly not everything is represented here. But it was a moment where you see how collaborative and how talented your peers are, and we went back and forth and helped each other think through our ideas, and I really value working in an environment where that's the case. And then this is another example of how working with really talented illustrators and artists also, just like Kayla said, propels your work forward. So we have designers in-house, but we do not have illustrators in-house. We hire a different illustrator for each project, for the most part. And so I was working on a middle grade novel called Tiny Infinities, and through some discussions with the editor and with the children's team, we decided we wanted a type-driven direction. I hired this woman named Maggie, who lives in Chicago and does this incredible floral type. And we worked through a few early sketches, which you see at the top. But what she's so great at is using the negative space as the letter forms. And so, the first directions really weren't going there, and so we said, this is the thing that we love about you, and this is what we want to see. And so then we got it where, okay, well, the letter forms are the positive space. Like, we're so close, can we push the contrast so that we can really use it as the negative space? And so you can see the progression until the final cover right there. And then we were looking at that final cover, and the illustration is gorgeous. She did an incredible job. And then I brought it to Design Show and Tell, and a bunch of designers looked at it and said, you should take all of those tiny little dots and put them in foil, and which is what we did. And so the cover now has this really remarkable shine that I love so much, and was this idea that came from designers looking at the illustrator, and she was so amenable to it. And so there's this great back and forth that can happen in an ideal world.
All right, number 8, find ways to work in what you like. So when I was here at the Academy, I really loved all the packaging design classes. I loved working with three-dimensional structures and seeing how things fit together, and really getting hands-on with things. I also did a lot of illustration in my projects, and I found that that's one of the things that I really, really loved. And so at Chronicle, sometimes you'll get a project that doesn't have an author attached to it or an illustrator, and it's more of an in-house idea that we can really make whatever we want. So for those projects, sometimes I like to sneak in my own illustrations here and there. So this is one example. This is Paper Blossoms. But for this one, we worked with Ray Marshall, and he is a genius with these pop-up books. However, they are so expensive to produce that we could not hire an illustrator. There's no budget. Luckily, this came on my list, so I was able to work on it. And I started out with beautiful blank pages like this. And Ray gave me these die lines. And it was really fun. I had to figure out like how things are going to go together, what's going to overlap where, and really put on like my package design mock-up skills to make sure everything worked together. So I started, of course, with sketches. And then eventually got through the whole beautiful illustration. And I love just seeing it all come together in one beautiful spread here. So I would recommend that if there's something that you really love to do, try to find some way to work it in here and there. It could be like content that you like. Maybe there's projects that fit it really well. One of our designers loved astronomy, and he started working on this book with NASA. and was able to go through all the photos and curate it pretty much. And that really spoke to his passion. So find something that you're passionate about and try to work it in as much as you can.
Okay. And along those lines, actually, number 9, our last one, is don't be afraid to pitch your own ideas. Designers can be content creators too. So kind of what Kayla was talking about, something at Chronicle is that we call a homegrown project is when the idea comes from us, the designers and the editors, not from an outside author. And last year, our industrial designer, Lauren, was developing a new line of non-paper-based products. Products with wood, you saw the Jacob's ladder, bent metal, ceramic, and this was really exciting to me, and I was not officially tasked with working on this, but I couldn't help talk to Lauren and spitball some ideas with her. One of my ideas was a set of wooden blocks where the different shapes created a modular alphabet. She liked the idea, and we both started playing around. This was one of our first attempts. The O through R was just a big question mark. But we kept working with it and finally got an affordable set of shapes that could actually make all 26 letters. And once we got that done on paper, she made this plastic mock-up that we fit together so that it could fit in a box. And in the end, they named it Alpha Shapes, and it is launching this spring as part of the 5 new products on our list. So being able to create content like this is a different creative outlet from most of my design work, and I find it very fun, and I feel like the lesson here is don't wait for an invitation to pitch an idea. You just never know where it could lead.
Okay, so opportunities for you to join us. Hopefully from this presentation you got to see A, how immensely talented the women sitting next to me are, B, how nice they are, and C, how fun it is to work with Chronicle Books and work with us, even if you're not on staff. So I have been pitching over and over again to many of you the fellowship program, which is the thing that I manage. So it is a 1-year term, and as Phil said, it's like kind of a transition between your school life and the rest of your career. So it's a full-time job. You're there 40 hours a week. We pay you, which is great. Mm-hmm. We also provide health benefits, which is really great, especially for those of you who have worried parents. And so we hire 4 people. We have 4 positions available, so 1 person per position. So it's Books and Gifts Design Fellow. So that's a person who would actually work with Allison to create books and gifts, and that's mostly for a grown-up audience. Children's books and gifts. So it's the same thing. You're working on books and other gift products and more of a kids audience. And then marketing communication, so that person would work with our marketing team to do more general brand design for the company. That person, last year, that fellow got to work on our 50th anniversary campaign and help work to build the mobile bookstore bike that we had, so it's like a fun position, a little bit different than our standard making books and gifts. And then we also hire a product and industrial design fellow. So that's somebody to support our industrial designer who makes things like the Jacob's ladder that Keela showed, or the wooden blocks that Allison just talked about. So those are kind of the other thing that these designers get to do, in addition to they're junior designers on our staff for a year essentially. But the other thing they get to do is we have something called Design Lab. So it's a weekly seminar with our creative director, Michael Carabetta, and also we pull in editors, other designers, and they do projects basically. So there's 6 projects a year, and they can be things that are sort of like pie in the sky, super abstract. I won't I won't give away what any of those are, but one of them that we do every year is the poster competition. So if you walk outside the graphic design department right now, you'll see that there's a Chronicle Books Design Fellowship poster. And that was designed by one of our fellows. Each of them, it's like a little competition between them. They each design different concepts, and basically one is selected and then it goes into print. It's distributed to art schools around the country. It gets translated into our website. It's like a fun campaign to get to work on that will actually go out into the world this year. So applications are due on April 2nd, 2018. For the books and gifts positions and also the marketing position, we actually need to get your physical portfolio to our office by April 2nd. So, mail it, deliver it yourself, send it on a singing telegram. Don't do that. That would be embarrassing. But, it's got to be there on April 2nd. So that's in a little bit less than a month. I've already seen some of your portfolios that are looking great. So show us what you got. And for more information on the fellowship, including job descriptions, please check out our website. It's chroniclebooks.com/design fellowship. I'll have postcards at the end that we can pass out that have that. It's also on all of the posters. But general job advice for all of you: always read the job description when you apply and make sure that what you're showing people is indicative of what you can do for what they want you to do. So for a books and gifts position, maybe fewer websites and maybe more examples of typography, long form text, that kind of stuff. And that's, but if you're applying for a marketing position, marketing design position, those web examples might be more applicable. I say that because you guys are going into the work world, and that's something that in any job and any hiring position, they're going to look at this and be like, can this person do the job that I want them to do? So that's we can do more questions about fellowship later. Other opportunities to work for us. So if you are not a designer that wants to do, or not a person who's a fit for the 4 fellowship positions, you have the opportunity to do a few things. One of them is freelance for us.
Yeah, illustrators. We work with illustrators all the time. We love you guys. Send your portfolio to that email address, and we'll share your work around the department. And it's a great way to introduce yourself to us.
We promise we actually look at them. It doesn't go into a black hole.
We're always hunting for illustrators.
Yeah. And then for those of you who are not graduated yet, or maybe not ready for a full-time junior design position, we also do periodically do studio internships. These are a little bit different than a design position. It's basically a person to help us make mock books for some of our sales fairs, like the Frankfurt Fair. So you're basically making a bunch of books before they go to print. So for that position, we're really looking for people who are really good with an X-Acto knife and making things by hand, and that's what we'd expect to see in your portfolio. Again, it's in the job description. We see a surprising amount of applications that don't really display the kind of skills that we're looking for that job, and so those people are less strong candidates than I think people who are going to read the job description and send stuff where they've hand cut something or they've put together a book. So I use that as a specific example because it's a good way to think about how to get a job and how to move forward in your career. And I guess that is all the information we have to share for you. Thank you. I know that was a long presentation. I hope it was interesting, and we will take your questions if you have them. Yes.
So, because I'm in the illustration department and not in the graphic design, so I do have works, but not a lot of them are focused with typography and stuff. So for that kind of stuff, do you guys recommend me to still try to apply it, even though I don't have that much typography stuff?
Are you talking about the fellowship?
Yes, the fellowship.
Yeah, that, it would be hard to get a fellowship without typography in your portfolio.
So is it better for Illustrator to apply for the freelance one?
Definitely.
Yeah, we'd be more likely to look at your work for a specific book project that we need an illustrator that might have your style.
Do you have
Yeah, we actually have an entire department that's dedicated to production. So it's they work very closely with our designers, but basically there's a separate group that works really closely with all of the factories. They know what every factory's capability is. They figure out, like, they help us do our proofing, our testing, like how will this foil look, that kind of thing. You guys can probably talk about it in more detail, but
we do also have a play room where we have a bunch of supplies that we can mock up and explore. We don't have a wide variety of printers, but we do have fun supplies to play with.
Question was for Kayla about her 3D modeling.
Yes.
And one, how long did you spend to learn everything using those 4 resources you mentioned? And did you do that like during work hours? Like, was the company very supportive of you and
That is a good
encouraging
question.
you learning a new skill set? What was that kind of experience?
So I had about 4 days to learn as much as I could to put together those visuals. So it was very quick. Yes, I did use company time. At Chronicle, our managers, who are also designers, by the way, so you're managed by a designer, which is great. They encourage us to learn as much as we can. We're encouraged to take field trips if we want, do field research on company time, as long as we're bettering ourselves so that we can put out better products. It's all about personal growth as well as how we can apply ourselves to a project and make it better. So.
Yeah. Now we're all jealous of Kayla's skills.
After that, I did spend more time like going over things and learning more things, watching more videos. I'm not an expert at all. I have so much further to go if I wanted to. But with what I picked up, I can do what I needed to do for those projects. Yeah.
I noticed that like the number of ebooks, it's growing. You guys have been doing a lot of ebooks, and so for something like that, are you guys looking for more like UI UX experience and background, or would you still expect to see more like traditional books and magazines?
We basically all the ebooks. Well, somebody else want to answer? It's kind of complicated.
The ebooks mostly go through our production department.
Yes.
So we create print-ready files, and our production department takes those and creates ebooks.
That's what I want.
That's kind of what I know.
Yeah. So we don't deal with, on the design side, we don't deal with ebooks.
Yeah. And a lot of our books are about the production value and about the aesthetic, and so I don't think Chronicle Books will ever be a dominantly ebook publisher. I think we're solidly in print.
yeah, and I think it's that we've actually done really well because we've really invested in books that have that object quality, as Alice mentioned. So I think like we do ebook versions of what we make, but I think that it is not like a big focus of our investment, because like our strategy is to make these things that are really like wonderful to look and touch, basically. So that's like our company philosophy and our direction at this moment, and it's worked really well for us, which is great. Bill.
You guys talked a lot about illustration, and you showed a lot of illustration, but I know a lot of Chronicle books that feature photography. Is that something that...
Yeah, it is a good point.
Yes. I think that was just our examples happen
Do we
to
have
be.
any photographers in the audience today? I know we've talked to that part. Okay.
Yeah, we work with photographers all the time. I think that was just an oversight in our examples.
Yeah.
That we
I
didn't.
don't as often. Kids'
Oh,
books,
yeah.
very rarely. Though I did do a baby photo shoot recently.
We hire a lot of photographers, and so that's another thing that we look for freelancers for, and we're always sort of looking to grow that stable and figure out like different perspectives and views on how to do the kind of stuff that we want to do. Yes.
Is it common for a designer to be working on multiple projects at once, or do you kind of just take
Yeah, always we have a lot of projects that we're always working on. Our year is split into 2 seasons, fall and spring, based on our catalog, and we each have upwards of 10 projects for each season, and you're kind of working on multiple seasons at a time because books are in a different part of their process. You know, it takes a long time to make a book, so yeah, it's a lot of shifting priorities about which project you need to focus on at any given moment.
Yeah.
If you're a graphic designer and you have most of the skills that you're qualified for, but you're missing one skill, like trimming with the X-Acto blade, is it really necessary?
It depends on the job, right? Like, so I think for the studio internship, that is like kind of the number one skill we need you to have is like the ability to like cut things really carefully and make them. But as for like a design fellowship, like I think you can learn to use an X-Acto blade for the demands of that position.
Yeah, and it's all about, like I said earlier, growing. You're going to grow during this fellowship. You're going to learn a lot. I didn't know anything about really how to lay out a book as far as like the technical aspects to it, and that's all stuff you'll pick up as you go. So you will most likely pick up a skill that you don't have yet, maybe, or you'll develop it further.
You were a children's fellow, right?
Yes.
I mean, for the children's fellow, for an adult, or for the book and gift non-children's fellow, it's more important to know the technical aspects of how to lay out a book before you start. Although you do learn a lot more once you get there.
I mean, I think we're looking for, in addition to certain skill, like, I think a general life lesson is like apply anyway and see. That being like, and position yourself in the best way that you can. Like I emphasize the job description because it's like you should try to like do the best with what you have and position yourself in a way so that think about what the person hiring you might want to see and what the job might mean and like put forward the best work you have to show that you can do that job. And I think that's true even if you're like I'm not a designer and that's like when I look for jobs, that's what I do. But as we're looking to hire these people, like that is what we think about too. I think showing like passion and aptitude, eagerness to learn, those are all really important things too. I would say for us, especially like a cover letter is actually very important. And the presentation of your portfolio is important to us too. Like proofread it, like that it shows us like how much attention to detail you have. And a cover letter, I think it's hard because they take a long time to write and it seems like such a pain to do, but what it is an opportunity for you to show us something that we might not immediately understand from your portfolio. So it's like another piece of your story. So it's, every time any job you apply for, like if they ask for different things, think of it as instead of like a thing you have to get through, it's a way to tell your story further and like sell yourself as like the perfect person for a job, even if you don't have all like 100% of the requirements.
You mentioned with the marketing communications publishing opportunity that you would require a physical portfolio by the second. Can you just provide some insight as to like, is it just a website or like an online portfolio sufficient, or you would actually? I know you said that, but can you like explain why you would need a physical portfolio at that point?
So it's too bad the Marcom manager is not here tonight. But basically that person, they do like the web stuff and they do like, so they're making like ads and banners and also like doing website updates and we do like little microsites or like sort of unique designs for different reasons. But I think a lot of it is still print collateral, and so I think they want to know that you can do that and you understand how it works. Like, so that is my understanding for the reasoning behind requesting specifically a paper portfolio. That being like the industrial design one is the only one where they submit digitally, and it's because like, we can't handle all of your like models like coming to our office, and it's hard to ship. So that is a thing where we want more photography, and it makes sense to send it digitally. Yes.
Aside from people that solicit you directly, where do you look for talent? Are there publications or social media platforms or awards competitions or anything that you guys
For illustrators and
just
photographers?
for talent, just for design, just what do you do to keep tabs on design trends? Like, where else should these guys be broadcasting to, get your attention?
It's a good question.
We, I can say we subscribe to a lot of publications, and and I think people are encouraged to purchase books. Like, I think there is sort of a culture of everybody. This is a little weird thing, but everybody has their desk in the office, right? And there's a little space where you can display stuff you've worked on, but people also will display oh, I'm really I found this really weird zine at a garage sale, and they'll put it out, and people look at them and get inspiration. So weird ephemera. I think people look at Instagram. I mean, you guys are actually hiring these people, so I'll let you.
I don't have go-to sites. I feel like every project is so individual that I'm looking for a specific style that one site can't really capture. And they're just new sites all the time. I can't keep track. But what I do is I'll find if for instance, an illustrator, say there's a certain illustration style I'm looking for, and I know one illustrator like that, I'll just see where their work has been broadcast, what websites they're on, and that'll lead me to a lot of new sites that I haven't even thought of before.
Yeah. We go on a lot of wild goose chases, I think.
Yeah, it takes a long time to find what you're looking for.
But, I mean, we all use Pinterest, we all use Instagram. We go to all the ones that I think are the staples. But we invest a lot of our time trying to find people.
We're also AIGA members, so I think there's also we have memberships like AIGA. We go to different conferences as well that are sort of content, the food conferences and stuff like that. So I think that we're very active in all the different ways that we need to be in order to keep tabs on what's trendy and what's going to be trendy and what's going to be what's going to work for us, basically. So
yeah, but I would say if you have a favorite illustrator or a favorite photographer, whatever, and you look to what sites are featuring them, try to get on those sites.
And send postcards. Every time I get a postcard in my mailbox, I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, this could be great.
Yeah, postcards work.
Anything else?
Just so you're all aware of the services that we have at the university here. They talked a lot about having these wide range of skills. They asked if any of you are photographers. No one raised their hand. That's okay. Just keep in mind that there are free workshops in every department at the university. So if it doesn't fit into your curriculum, or you aren't able to use that as an elective, use those workshops. I regret when I was a student here not going to enough of those workshops in all these different areas. There's animation, you can learn 3D modeling, you can hone in on your photography skills, you can do some more industrial design, and those are things you can add to your resume and your portfolio to help give you an edge in those areas. And then something else, they're talking about cover letters and resumes. This whole event was put on by Career Development. Career Development is our department here in the university that is here specifically to help you with cover letters and resumes. Doing the job. So if you have not signed up with Lauren Spain, it's just careerdevelopment@academyart.edu. Write it down, everyone. careerdevelopment@academyart.edu. She will coach you. She will grill you. She will refine your cover letter and your resume, tell you everything that you need to know to go in there and totally nail the job. She'll even do mock interviews with you. So again, free resource for you. Once you graduate, it's also free for alumni, so we've always got your back. Always making sure you get
Kayla,
Well, thank you guys for being such a great audience and staying really late. We hope to see applications from you guys for the fellowship and your portfolios in our portfolio review. And please let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
And thank you guys once again very much.
Oh.